Welcome back to MMA Oddsbreaker. I'm Frank Trigg. That is Ricky Lundell, who is now on the tongues of everybody that wants to learn how to grapple. Even my grappling coach, Neil Melanson, has called me and said, you need to go to Bishop Gorman when you're in Vegas because that's where Ricky is and that's where the best grappler is around. And that's another grappling coach telling me to go to another grappling coach to train. So that's how big you are right now.
Well, that's a huge deal. I mean, Neil Melanson's the top of the top, so I'm beyond flattered to have somebody like that saying that and giving that kind of review for me. You know, I've been able to work with him on this camp with Travis Browne, and Neil Melanson he's one of those guys that's on another level. I mean, he's a true legend of the sport, so that's huge.
The biggest thing that he does, and the reason why I think you two get together so well, is that it's not really jiu-jitsu as much as it's catch wrestling. From the sense of not traditional catch wrestling, everybody starts freaking out and thinking these weird names for all these moves, but where you're taking a wrestling base and going, we're going to take this wrestling base and we're going to hurt you as much as we can while we're trying to find the submission, just to find out how much you can take in the middle of a fight. Like, that's basically what Neil taught me to do, and I wish I had him 10 years before I retired.
Right.
It would have changed my game. Like, I got him the last 2 years, I was like, I'm too old now to really implement it.
Yeah, I think something that we both have a lot in common is that we both tend to like to look to break somebody's will while we're trying to look for the submission. I mean, it's the same thing. We're going to use the technique, we're going to use the leverage, we're going to use all those things, but we're going to break it down mentally and then overcome you that way too. So if you're a pansy but you're technical, you know, we'll just beat you that way. Eventually you'll quit under us, or vice versa. And I saw that big time in your style over the years as it started to change. I mean, I guess Neil started to push that on you more and more, and with your wrestling background, I can see how that happened quickly for you.
I had a typical wrestler problem where I would go in and like, you can't take me down, so I can knock you out. So I just stay on my feet the whole time. And that, like every other wrestler, we all got fallen. And then when I started getting hit a little bit more, I was like, oh, I got to go back to wrestling. I got to figure this out because my chin's not as good as it used to be. So what do I do? And then I got really old and had to get out of the way for the younger generation to come through. But you look back, the team I had at the very, very end was the best team I ever had as far as training and management and the whole bit goes. But it was just 10 years too late. So, but first, I want to go back and talk about you for a second because most people don't know this. I actually went through, I've known you for years. We worked out a couple times together, and I had no idea. You started Utah Valley University at 15 years old?
I did, yeah. I started there really, really young. I ended high school really early, and I did private schooling when I was younger.
Okay.
And I even through people ask me, how'd you end up going to college so early? And when I was younger, I even spent some time like on a boys ranch, and went through a tough struggle in my life where my parents were like, man, this kid's out of control. You know, we're going to send him to a boys ranch. So while I was there, I studied and studied and studied. I mean, there was nothing to do other than work and study. So I studied. Then I got out of there, and then and it was like it was more like just a farm that people go work on and do schooling at the same time. So then when I left there, then I spent a lot of time on my studies. At the same time, spent the time on my jiu-jitsu and wrestling. And started college really, really early. I mean, I had passed so many people because I was working day and night on my intellectual side.
It's funny. I have a middle brother. I'm the middle of 7 boys. I have a brother that's a little bit older than me, Russell.
Yes.
And he went to George Junior Republic, which basically was the same thing. His deal was alcohol and drugs. My mom was like, we got to get him someplace, put him in boarding school. He got out a year and a half early, considering when he should have. He got out at 16 and a half instead of waiting till 18 when everybody else gets out. He went to the Air Force and ended up being a Chief Master Sergeant before he got out. So a totally different path from you, but the same kind of story where he got there and he just kind of changed his mind up and changed what he was going to do. And now he's very successful. He lives over in Saudi Arabia and teaches radar technicians how to fix the F-16s that we sold to the Saudi government. You went the other route, went submission, wrestling, and got recruited by, in my mind, and I remember I'm old enough to have worked out with John Smith when he was getting ready for the 92 Olympic Games. In my mind, the best wrestler that America's ever produced in Cody Sanderson. You get recruited by this guy, by him and his brother, to come in your senior year and compete with zero folk star wrestling background over at Iowa State. What the hell? How was that? How did that phone call go?
It was beyond anything you can imagine. You know, I'm out there in Utah, and he watched me at the World Team Trials in grappling, and we were competing right alongside the guys trying to make the Olympic team. And I won the tournament and became USA's representative for grappling. And through that experience, him and Cody Sanderson were watching, and which is such a crazy thing. I mean, these guys are so innovative, and that's why they're at the top of the heap. I mean, now they're at Penn State University. So for everybody who's like, hey, who are these guys? I haven't heard about Iowa State. That's because the whole Iowa State team just moved over to Penn State, and now they dominated the last 4 years. Yeah. So these guys are so innovative that they're like, hey, you do jiu-jitsu? I noticed there's some stuff here that I think could work for our guys. And they pulled me out and said, you know, I think this could really help our team, and I think that we could learn a lot from this. And they brought me out to Iowa State and put me on their team. And at the time, we were number 2 in the nation. They made the move that year, right after that, to Penn State University. And then after 1 year, so it took them a year, and then they went 4 in a row, which is unreal. I mean, the team hadn't won a national championship since 1953.
Well, I understand, too, at Penn State, it's an academic school as well. So just trying to keep academically alive in that place is impossible. Now try to put in 2 practices a day, cutting weight, diet, running around, running stadium steps the whole bit, and then being able to win 4 national titles in a row is ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, there's kids that went to the school and they didn't go a year without having a team national title. So 4 years in a row, just like national title. They're gonna walk out and everybody's gonna be like, so where did you wrestle? Well, 4 years we won the national title. It was crazy. It was crazy.
And I only took second. Sorry, I sucked. I was the bad guy on the team. I only took second. Like, what the hell?
What's worse is their football team was a 2-time national team, and they're super famous. Yeah. This team is now 4-time. I mean, they've doubled it.
It's incredible. And now, let me understand something. You actually went there to compete. You went to Iowa State to actually wrestle, but the NCAA wouldn't make you eligible, so you couldn't compete your whole senior year?
That's right. So because I went, so this is so crappy. I mean, I can't even begin to explain how crappy it is that the NCAA would do this. But because I went to college at 15 years old, I played no sports, did nothing, and they still said you cannot compete because you already went to college. So because I went to college and I had graduated when I was 18, I was younger than most of the guys who were walking into that room. Yeah. I mean, there's kids on that team that started with me that are still wrestling, and it's been, 2008, so they're still on the team. Matt Brown was my training partner, and he was a finalist last year, and he's still on the Penn State wrestling team. David Taylor, coming and training with me when he was 18 years old. Now he's a 2-time national champ, 2-time runner-up. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy that they would do that. But yeah, because of that eligibility, they pulled it from me and said I couldn't compete. So Cale said, hey, you can't compete. You know what? Go try out for the Grappling World Team again. I'll help train you, and we'll see what happens. So I ended up doing that, and then I won the Grappling Worlds a second time. So I mean, it was good on both ends. But man, I'll never be satisfied with the fact that the NCAA wouldn't let me compete.
They're pimps over there. They're basically pimping out all the athletes at every sport level. Of course, football being the worst. They're starting to change some of the rules of football. But the same thing happened to me. My junior year, I blew my knee out, and they wouldn't give me a medical hardship year. They were like, you went to too many different schools. You can't get a medical hardship year. I'm like, my eligibility is fine. What do you mean? Right. I transferred too many times. Like Oklahoma State University got the death penalty for 2 years, so I transferred to a junior college. I got recruited to go back to OU or to go to OU instead of Oklahoma State. So I went to OU. It wasn't like I was transferring around because I just got wild hair in my ass. They're like, nope, you can't. We're not going to give you a medical hardship year. We're not going to give you that year back. You're just out. You're like, thanks, guys. Like that just ruins everything for me. That's the Olympic chance.
What really sucks is 1 second they play black and white, then the next second they're all in the gray, then they're black and white again. So I mean, if your knee's blown out, your knee's blown out. Yeah. And that's it. It's like, guys, I was 15 years old. Do you think I could have, you're going to put me in with the college kids? 27-year-old, muscled out farm kid from Iowa that's ready to kill me at 15. Now I'm finally 21, and no, you can't come in because you were too smart originally.
They're legitimately going after you because, exactly. They're going after you because you work too hard. They're saying, no, you can't compete because you work too hard. Like, what the hell? It doesn't make any sense. What do you
It
mean I work
makes
too
no
hard?
sense. It makes no sense.
I hate
So-
those guys.
So that'll always be a frustration. So hey, if you're watching and you were part of that committee, I'm still upset with you. Don't come talk to me.
I can guarantee they probably won't now they know your accolades. They're not going to come by because they don't want that to all of a sudden turn to an arm drag, foot sweep. All of a sudden, there's my knee. Thanks, guys. Let's talk about some of the guys you're training right now. Obviously, Travis Browne is who you have this weekend. I talked to Travis. He could not shut up about you and Neil. Like, he just could not stop talking about how good you guys were. And mind you guys, ladies and gentlemen at home, he wins the FILA World Grappling Tournament at 149 pounds. Is that right?
154.
154, and then you win the absolute, beating a guy in the finals who competes at 286 and weighed about 265. So this is a little guy that knows how to beat big guys. Travis said getting you on him sometimes was like trying to get a leech off. Like every time you pull, like walk into a river and getting leeches all over you. Every time you pull one off, there's another leech over here, and there's another one over here. It's like every time you get Ricky off on this side, he's on this side. You get him off over here, he's over here. I'm like, I know, it sucks. It sucks.
The only way to climb Travis Browne, the guy's 6'7", 247, you better leech onto him because the guy cannot be controlled. I mean, he's such an animal. So I was when I was competing, we went. I remember fighting this guy who's 265 to win the Pancrase Worlds, right? And he's massive. I mean, him and Jeff Monson went back and forth to make the world team for FILA. And everybody knows how big Jeff Monson is. I mean, both these guys are animals. And I still remember wrestling with this guy. And I kind of, because we were doing the absolute so much, which it doesn't happen anymore, really, Trigg. Like, in your time, absolutes were all the time, right?
I'm actually doing a grappling tournament here in Vegas on May 27th. At the Extreme Couture. It's the Icon Grappling Tournament. If you guys remember old school Icon fights, that's where I fought Lawler, that's where I fought Miller.
Yes.
TJ Thompson started a grappling tournament specifically because of absolutes are gone. And what it is, it's 4 minutes, submission only. There's no points.
Awesome.
If there's 8 guys in your weight class, you have 7 matches, guaranteed. If there's 9 guys in your weight class, you have 8 matches, guaranteed. You show up like, remember old school wrestling? Well, no, you don't remember old school wrestling. You show up, your whole weight class is show up at the mat, and everybody wrestle each other until the whole weight class was done. Then you move on. The winners of that, absolute. Winner of the absolute, free trip to Hawaii. Because there's no more absolutes. Like, there's no more Ricky Lundells and Jeff Munsons battling against each other. Like, all that stuff is gone.
Right.
Garcia versus, Pedro Hizzo. There's none of that going on anymore. And it has to come back.
I know it's weird because thinking back, that's how I had competed growing up. I mean, that was normal. And to now see it where it's like, nope, you're a pound over. There's no way. You know what? You're too light to fight this person. So I'm sorry, you can't compete. And
I understand
you see
that in MMA. I get it in MMA for fighter safety. Like, that I get because there's striking,
Totally.
there's elbows, there's knees. Like, I get that. But
when we're talking about grappling,
come on.
Yeah, guys, if you guys got to go to that event. I mean, that's huge. It's good to see somebody else bringing that back.
It's and it's only right now. It's early registration is only $75 for both styles. So it's $75 for gi and no gi. We start weighing at 8 o'clock, and we are out of there by 5 p.m. Done. Whole tournament's done at 5 p.m. Out.
Yeah, that's sick. That's awesome.
I don't play well with time. It's old school wrestling, like how you run your practice at Bishop Gorman. We start at a particular time, we finish at a particular time. We don't like this whole, maybe we get done 20 minutes later, maybe we get done 30 minutes earlier. Like, no,
right?
It's on time. Got to be out of there.
100%.
Let's talk about Bishop Gorman. Speaking of which, you guys went from. Let's be honest. You guys were shitty when you took over the program. I mean, absolutely horrible, pathetic. It's a super rich white school, and wrestling is not a rich white program. It's not. It's Midwest farmers, just guys that work all day, blue collar worker types. What's it like training kids that show up in Bentleys and Mercedes and they're 16?
Oh my gosh. Well, I try not to park by them. That's the beginning of all the stuff because it's so humbling to see these kids. I mean, these kids drive up in a car that I probably will never afford no matter what happens, But my first day there, now, guys, if you've seen the show Undefeated on Netflix with the football kids, that is like Bishop Gorman, but the other spectrum. I mean, it is so crazy. It was all these rich kids, 0-10 one year, 0-10. I mean, that brutal. This last year, we went 15-4. Which is crazy because we have all these, nerdy white kids. It's like I went down and found the chess club, grabbed them all, and dragged them in the wrestling room like, hey, I need wrestlers. You guys got to come in here. First day there, Trigg. First day, I have these kids. Everybody get up to the wall, do some handstands. The kids who made it up to do a handstand, right? I had kids like sideways on their neck, like trying to hold themselves up, like crushing their body. And I have these videos of these kids. And I was like, coming from Iowa, I'm sitting there like, oh my, what is happening here? What is even happening? And these kids, the longest handstand I had was 17 seconds. And it was a returning kid. I mean, we're talking like no strength, no upper body strength, nothing, no work ethic. And it took some time. I mean, I had to boot out all these old kids. I had to bring in all these new kids and instill a new work ethic, a different idea of what I expected. And it's taken some time, but I got some hammers now. I mean, I got some real killers that they're all homegrown. They're all pushing through. And Bishop Gorman's on the front of being a very, very mean national team.
Now, most public high schools, the coaching staff gets like $1,200 for the season. There's no way you can be surviving on $1,200. Even if Bishop Gorman gives you full access to the restroom anytime you want it to train these other guys, there's no way in how you can survive on that. Please tell me you're getting compensated more money than that. There's money coming in from some, because to have a coach like you come in for $1,200 a year is kind of ridiculous, especially in that program.
Oh, we are the most underfunded program at Gorman for sure right now. Still, I mean, I'm building funding and pushing through. We've been lucky enough to have great donors come in to jump starting the program. I mean, with UFC contacts, we've gotten all our gear and things like that. But
stop with the UFC contacts. Both Frank and Lorenzo Fertitta's kids go to the school. That's where Dana went to school. That's where everyone goes to school in town. That's where my kids are going to go to school because it's the place to be. If you're going to be in school in Vegas, Bishop Gorman's the spot. That's just what it is.
It is. It's the only place. I mean, I left. I moved from Utah. And when I saw Bishop Gorman, I was like, man, my kid's got to go to the school. This is 100%. This is the place. So I mean, Bishop Gorman's whole program, when I got there, no wrestling room, no gear, nothing.
Oh,
Lorenzo Fertitta.
I thought the wrestling room was already there. So the photos of you in the wrestling room, you had to get the donation to build that room.
Yes. And it all came from Dana, Lorenzo, and Frank Fertitta. And they don't have a kid on the wrestling team. They have no vested interest. Just, you guys need a wrestling room?
Well, let's be honest. They do have a vested interest in a kind of 3 degrees of separation, because you have this wrestling room, you have a place to train a lot of the guys in town that wouldn't train with you at Red Rock because like Mir and Big Country train the same spot, so they wouldn't train over there. And all those other, now they have a spot to go to and get privates with you and be quiet with you and not anybody else see that they have a vested interest because now their television show is better. Every time there's a pay-per-view on, Travis Browne and Werdum all of a sudden becomes a very game fight where 2 years ago it would have been, okay, Travis knocks him out on the feet, but if Werdum gets a hold of him even a little bit, fight's over. That's not the game anymore because Ricky Lundell now is at Bishop Gorman. So yeah, they do have a vested interest in it. Offsetting, kind of a weird way, but they're so smart. I'm sure they were thinking about that. Hey, what's going to happen?
They are smart on all business angles. I mean, they're very intelligent there.
Yeah, those they remember they took a show, they took something that was banned in 48 states and made it a worldwide phenom. So obviously they know what the hell they're doing, one way or the other.
Oh, big time. So, hey, Frank, I have a question for you. I mean, coming from coaching at Beverly Hills, did you run into the same problems? I mean, similar problems. How did you go about it?
I got lucky because I got recruited by Nicolas Cage, and he had a son. Weston was his eldest son. He's in the program, and they wanted a better wrestling coach than they had. So I came in for a couple years and taught while I was still living in LA. You would have legitimately a kid that had, filet and scrambled eggs and a salad for breakfast made by the personal chef.
Yep.
And a kid that hasn't eaten for 3 days because Beverly Hills High is very strange. If you're Beverly Hills adjacent, you go to Beverly Hills High School, which is like literally across the railroad tracks, and it's the poorest part of town. So these kids go to Beverly Hills High, but they're all like, it's going to sound racist, but it's like all the landscapers, all the pool guys, like that's what these parents do. The maids, the plumbers, like that's what all their parents do, and they're coming up and they're walking to school, taking public transportation, and then the guy on the team with them is being dropped off by the chauffeur. They're driving up in a brand new Maserati. They're driving, like the guy, swear to you, The guy that invented spinners. He invented spinners. He invented spinners. He invented them. His kid goes to school, and the kid's like, he has an elevator in his house. He doesn't understand. He was mad one day coming in because he had to walk downstairs because the elevator was broken. No elevator. He's walking downstairs. So it's so frustrating because you have the blue-collar worker kid that will work all day long, every day, always shows up, never misses a day, could be having the flu, spitting out of every hole in his body, is so short for practice. There's other kids like, my feet hurt, I'm not working out today. You're like, really? And I come from the Midwest style of coaching where, like Kenny Monday, like John Smith, like the Sanderson brothers, you beat these kids up. You beat them up. You yell at them. You scream at them. You make them understand how tough the world is. You can't do that with these other kids. You can't yell at them. You can't beat them. You can't push them to the brink because they will just have to walk
weird.
out. Like, it's so frustrating.
Yeah, no, they've never had their maid yell at them. I mean, they've never had their butler come and get in their face and be like, you know what? I'm just going to slap you in the face for what you just said to me.
Worse.
What'd you say? You know?
There's this kid. Oh, my gosh. So, this kid shows up, and he's like, yeah, my nanny. Yeah, I've noticed since I was little. So I started talking to her, and she's like a Brazilian chick, and like her English is kind of weird. This kid's 16. I'm like, you've noticed since you were little, but her English is still kind of strange, whatever. You almost keep her locked up like an indentured servant. Like, she only deals with the kids. She was the wet nurse. That's how she got hired. She was a wet nurse. And she's still with him as a nurse. So understand, this kid's like 15, 16 years old, been with this girl since birth.
And he still has his wet nurse. Because
the mom didn't want to, like, she was worrying about sagging after all the breast milk dropped out. I'm like, this is the issues that I have? This is what I have to deal with? This kid, he can't concentrate because she's got, she's very well endowed, and he's like all of a sudden hitting his hormone stride, and he doesn't know what to do with himself because he's seen those things before, and he wants them again, and like, this is so bad.
Bro, I don't have that particular problem currently, but it is nice to hear that somebody else has gone through my situation before. I mean, I am excited to see what people can do. I mean, technique reigns if we got the work ethic involved in the right style, and obviously it's happening. It's coming together, and I'm sure that it happened at Beverly Hills. I mean, you guys rocked and rolled.
We finally got together. My second year, it took me a year to kind of get the program installed. Second year came through, it went really well, and then I had to move to Vegas because the fight game moved from LA to Vegas, and that's where Zuffa was, and I wanted to be part of the UFC, so I made the move. And they got a new series of coaches after, and that coach had the same mentality, and he kind of pushed it through. So it ended up being they're mediocre now. They're not great, but they're doing all right. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough being in those neighborhoods, especially when the kids are thinking about, well, I'm not sure if my horse is okay. I have to go home and take care of my horse.
Right.
What? Yeah, I have a ranch like downtown. There's a horse ranch downtown. I didn't know that. All right, this is great. My life is really unkilted. So. Well, let's talk about Travis Browne for a little bit because that's who your main focus is this week. Weight's good, obviously. He's had a great training camp. Let me ask you this. If you and Werdum had to compete against each other, it was just a submission tournament, how would that match go? At what point would you submit him?
I believe that I'd be spending a lot of time on breaking him down mentally. He's extremely tough. I mean, he's extremely technical. And knowing that, I know that fatigue turns cowards into us all. I mean, we all turn into a coward when we get tired. Everybody does. We've seen Werdum time and time again start pulling guard when he's afraid. He'll drop back. I mean, he has a hard time getting in there on that level and mixing it up. Now, is Werdum technical? Beyond. Is he tough? Beyond. I would spend a lot of time staying on his neck and his head and looking to secure the back so that I could look for a finish. I definitely wouldn't be spending my time hanging out in his guard or sitting underneath in a spot where he could use his long body and spend some time on me. No way. So I think the key to that, man, is really spending the time in here, spending a lot of time in there.
Now, how much time have you had to work with Travis to make him understand that's what he's got to do is like start beating him up mentally? Like how much time? Because it takes to play the mental game using your physical skills. It's a skill set. It's something that has to be developed and trained and used properly.
It's a technique. It's a technique that's developed over time. Travis comes from a background where he's already a gritty person, and so he develops this kind of skill rather quickly. He actually enjoys the onset of somebody else's pain, which is it's a huge help in my field because he actually enjoys that. He likes watching them wither and flounder in the water and drown themselves. So that's helpful on my end. I spent a lot of time with Travis and making this happen. It all started coming together before the Barnett camp and before the Overeem camp. I was working with Frank Mir out at Jackson's, and doing that. Obviously, Frank needed a partner like Travis, and then me and Travis hit it off real strong and started rolling from there. And so I was with him all during Frank's camp, then all during Travis's camp, then all during Frank's camp, then all during Travis's camp. So when you start to add up the time, you get quite a bit of time in there.
Yeah, that's almost a year's worth of training, of direct training with you. It doesn't take that long for a guy that's already an athlete, already in the sport, already understands the system, to pick up on and get a little bit faster, get a little bit better at it. So
totally, especially when they're already, kind of that person inside. They're already excited about that. Yeah. They're already excited about like, oh, is this going to bother him? Perfect, I'll do it. Travis is the guy that, like, if I'm like, hey, dude, would you stop making that noise? He'll start making the noise, like, every second he can to make sure that I'm annoyed, just to make sure that he's messing with my mental toughness. So he's that guy. So putting that into him, I mean, he's developing at a lightning speed.
Well, that's perfect. Ricky, I need to apologize. I was told by Amanda I'm only allowed to keep you on for 10 minutes. We're now at the 25-minute mark, so I apologize for keeping you on longer.
No. I love catching up with you and talking to you.
She's a stickler for the rules, that Amanda girl. She will not allow me to overstep, so she's going to be mad at me now when we get done. But, oh, well, I'll deal with it because it was great. I haven't talked to you enough. We don't hang out enough when we're in Vegas. And we travel so much. We're never around each other. It's just difficult. I do need to make a trip over to Gorman when you're there. I do need to check out the facilities and see what's going on. I actually am in awe of the photos and the videos that you put out of the guys training, of the stuff that you're putting out with not only with your Bishop Gorman wrestling program, but with guys like Mir and Travis Browne and the rest of the guys you train with. It's great to see a guy coming from, a submission background, jumping into wrestling and using all that skill to basically teach your students how to crush other people, and that's what's happening.
Well, thank you, Frank. I mean, we got to get you over there. I know you're busy. Stop being so successful and busy, and this won't be an issue.
It's all smoke and mirrors, my friend. It's all smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
It looks like it's all great, so. And you're like, 2 months no work. All right, this is fun.
Before we go, real quick, I just I wanted to see your take real quick on the 170-pound division. Who do you think's coming next for the championship?
Right now, obviously, Johnny Hendricks, I've known Johnny since he was little. I trained him when he was a little kid, in wrestling. Yep. He won a national title underneath me, kids' national title. I had nothing to do with it. I just sat there in the chair and watched it happen. Like, the kid was that good then. He's just one of those cats. He's only going to stay in the game, I believe. I have no proof of this. It's just my game and what I'm thinking. He's only going to stay in about 3 more years. He's going to get out. He's going to be really tough to beat between now and then.
Very.
Lawler's the best guy right now. Right now, today, Lawler's the best guy to challenge for that weight class. The problem is that it used to be every 6 months somebody new is in. It's legitimately every month somebody new is in that could actually challenge. I like Jake Ellenberger if he can get all of his tools put together at one time. I really do like Jake Ellenberger. He's just not quite that top heap yet. I like how he works. I like how he moves. There's a couple other guys that are floating around way at the bottom, but they're at least 1.5 to 2 years out. And the problem is, with a champ, like this is what happened with GSP. Every time he wins, he doesn't get a little bit better. He gets 10% better. So now you're trying to catch up by 20% every time because the confidence of winning is so good. Johnny believes he beat GSP
on top
the first
of that,
time.
they get that experience. I mean, and you know what I'm talking about, where it's like, hey, we're going to call, and then they hand you the phone. You have 30 interviews in a row, and then you can't sleep, and then you got to do this and that. Guys like GSP, he's done it so many times that he's like, oh, yeah, sure. And he knows how to go through it without stressing himself out. He understands the routine. And it's hard to catch. I mean, it's hard to catch when somebody's done that 10 times.
I want to see Condit come back again and see how he does after another good hard training camp, spending a little more time on his wrestling. I think between Lawler and Condit, those are the immediate threats. But then Johnny's in a position where, like GSP, he's got to worry about 4 or 5 steps back. Because say the next fight's with Condit, he gets hurt. All right, then the next fight's with Lawler, oh, he gets hurt. Oh, now all of a sudden you bang a guy you never even thought about, and that underdog kid that you never thought about. All of a sudden Ellenberger, you're like, Ellenberger's 5 fights away, it's okay. All of a sudden, like, crap, I'm in a real battle here. Like, what happened to me?
Right. Right.
So,
yeah, I think. It sucks that Condit had the injury he had. He's such a he's such a dominant kind of what we were talking about before, somebody who chips away at you a little bit, that he tends to lose that first round, but the second and third are brutal. You know, you talk about a title fight with that guy, it's like 2, 3, 4, 5, they're terrible.
Something happened with Condit that I don't know when it was or what happened. He used to come out like a mad dog the first round, second round. Some fight, someplace, he got exhausted and is like, I don't want to go into that well anymore. I don't want to dip down into that deep hole. So I'm going to kind of pace myself and wait a little bit. And that's the issue, is that I'm not going to start out hard and heavy in the first round because I want to have the energy in the fifth round. I think that hurts him a lot. I think he needs to bring up his pace just a little bit in the first, and he could win a couple more first rounds and not be in that panic mode third round where it's split. I got to start winning.
I fully agree. I mean, we've actually had that conversation, and he agrees on that. I mean, now it's like, wow, I have such incredible cardio. I'm a 5-round fighter like every fight, and because of that, it's like he tends to miss out on the first, but then the guy's so tired, he just comes through him. Like in the Woodley fight, it was like the first round, we all were like, oh, there goes the first, and then the second, it's like, here comes his hands and here comes his kicks, his combinations are coming through. And if he just started that way, the guy would be 10 times as tired. He'd be 10 times as tired. I mean, he'd end guys in the second all the time. I mean, so, not taking anything away. I mean, I know that right now, there's no question Condit can come in and, as soon as his knees healed up, I mean, he's in the top 4 guys in the world all the time. I mean, he's at that level. But that is an improvement that I believe that, the people who have really watched Condit over his career and have a true understanding, they know that he has the ability to push to that next level, which it'll be a level that's hard to keep up with.
Yeah, the only reason why I didn't mention Tyron Woodley earlier is because of his shape. He's so muscular bound, he's so explosive, he can do so much on a one jump that he's great till second round, then he starts to fade. Against a guy like Hendricks, who's just like a workhorse, he just keeps coming like a Clydesdale, you never can stop him. That that kind of power, that kind of strength isn't going to work come third round. He's just going to beat the crap out of you.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is Hendricks is that guy that's going to whittle you down over time and just crush you in, where somebody like a Woodley, he's so explosive on the outside, but once you break through him, you're going to bring him down and in. So anyway, I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, I knew that you had a lot of take on the 170-pound division. Obviously, you've been in it before, so I just wanted to see what your take was on a personal level there.
Thanks, Rick. I appreciate that, buddy.
Yeah, Frank, I really appreciate you having me on the show.
Obviously, man, it's great. I'd love to talk to you more. I'm probably going to start to hitting my man now to get you on all the time. Depending on which fighter you have and what we're going, because there's always something. We could legitimately have this conversation again tomorrow, and it'd be completely different because more crap has been fed at us in the last 24 hours. It's just how it changes.
Right.
So, well, Ricky, thanks for spending. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I would love to do something every week with you. I mean, that would be beyond awesome for me.
I'd love to. I'll try and set up there with a man and make it happen.
Oh, I love it. Love it. Frank, thank you so much, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for spending some time on here at MMA Oddsbreaker. It was great having you on here. Sorry I kept you way over the time limit, but man, no deal. She's been blowing my phone up. Like, she legitimately has been texting me every 30 seconds since. Like, she's like, are you done? Are you done? Are you done? I'm like, no, I'm not done. So.
She is freaking on it. That's all right. I gotta hit Travis. He's patient though. So
yeah, go get after it. I'll talk to you soon, bud. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Frank. Have a great day, man.
You too.